It's taught me a lot about boundaries. And boundaries don't keep, I always thought they kept us in, they chained us. And no, they allow the real me to be free, to be me. And there's a whole lot of freedom in the discipline and boundaries.
Hello, and welcome to the Emotional Expedition podcast. I'm Meg Thomas, and if you want to live a more open-hearted, magical life, it all starts with your emotions. This podcast will take you on a journey, helping you to better understand, express, release, and heal your emotions. Let's get exploring. I am so excited for today's guest, our very first guest. Every other week, we will have guests on the podcast, and they will be real people with real stories of emotions, or they will be experts in all sorts of healing modalities. And sometimes we will be lucky enough that they will be both. And today is one of those days. Caron is an RN, and she's worked in grief and end of life. She's a writer. And she also has an incredible TED Talk called Permission to Grieve that I will link to in the show notes. And above all else, I am so blessed to call her my dearest friend. I love her, and I could not think of anyone I'd rather kick off this podcast with. She is truly a transformation queen. She has overcome many, many challenges to be where she is right now. And she continues to live a courageous, open-hearted, magical life. And she has so much wisdom to share, and I cannot wait to share her with you. My dear friend, Caron, welcome.
Oh, Meg, thank you. Thank you so much. That was quite the introduction. Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm so thrilled to support this incredible podcast and you in it. So. Can't think of a better place to be right this minute.
Well, thank you. This is our first official guest podcast, so I'm just so thrilled to be doing this and headed down this path. So we have no idea. We have no idea where we're going. This is our emotional journey, and both of us are very intuitive, and we will follow those intuitive, magical nudges that will lead us down to the conversation that is meant to come to life today. So I would love to know where it all started for you. Can you share a little bit about your childhood, or when you realized you could feel other people's emotions, or if you didn't realize that, when that came to be for you?
Oh, yeah. Where does it begin? Well, I have always had a desire to know more of who I was. My earliest memories, I would be interested in horoscopes, or if somebody could tell a story about me. I love to hear stories about me. I just was really curious about who I was. And I also remember being really big. Like my emotions were big, my feelings were big, my thoughts were big, my movements were big. And I think I got a lot of nonverbal and verbal, dissatisfaction comes to mind. Like it was just too much for people. And I didn't know what to do with it all. And I also was aware that I always wanted to talk deeper, and I could feel what people were feeling, and I had this acceptance of where they were coming from. Like I didn't get as mad at people because I knew there was a story behind it and I understood it. And I didn't understand any of it. And I didn't have any teachers or people that could help me understand that. And I knew early on the energy of a room, and I acted accordingly. And it became clear that I felt different. I felt like I didn't belong, and I wanted to fit in, and I felt like it was a secret. And something I've learned over the years is we're as sick as our secret. And I started hiding in food. I found comfort in food. I didn't know that at the time, but I found that food kind of soothed me. It became a friend. It became a confidant. It became a lot for me. And with that, I began sneaking on food and became the lying. And there became a lot of things around all that. And I started lying about who I was, lying about what I was doing. And that became a way of living. And, when I was 13, my mother died. My mother died. It was on Easter Sunday, and she died of a heart attack. I'd say it was suddenly in the fact that we didn't know that she had any heart issues. But she wasn't feeling well the night before. And in the morning, she died. And I was 13. My sister had just turned 17, and we were just lost. And, pretty soon my sister went off to college. My father didn't know what to do with me. Nobody knew what to do with me. 1977. We talked differently then. We didn't investigate the feelings of what we were going through. And, I was immediately put into therapy, which I kind of liked because I could learn more about me. But I didn't trust her. I didn't trust her, and I didn't trust the process. And I didn't know how to label the emotion. It wasn't just that my mother died and there was grief. There was anger, and there was disappointment, and there was envy, and there was jealousy, and there was fear, and there was anguish, and there was betrayal. I didn't know the names of all these. And I really just acted out. I just acted out with drugs, alcohol, food, unhealthy relationships, and just defiance. That became my identity. I was a motherless daughter. I was a rebel, and I was the anti-normal. I was speaking for all the people who were in pain and not being heard. And that became my way of life. There's people in my life that would tell you other things, that I still had kindness, that I still had some joy. I still was a loyal friend. I still really compassionate. I didn't see all that. I just remember the anger. It led me to a lot of really dangerous places. And, recently I was listening to Viola Davis's book, and she has a new memoir out. And she was talking about, and I'm probably misquoting this, but this is what I heard, was she was talking about healing the little girl, the little girl who went too much. And I have spent so much trying to heal that little girl. And the therapist said something to the effect of, that little girl was scrappy. Like, she did what she had to do to survive. Like, she wasn't thinking like, what do I need to do? She just did it. She survived. And, it's the person I am today that has had to do a lot of healing. That little girl, I just have to let her know that she was loved, and she is loved. And I do that every single day. And so, yeah, I just went on a search of finding out who I am, and how to heal, and how to be a better version of me, and what my truth is, and learn to be heard without. I learned young that negative behavior got attention a heck of a lot quicker than positive.
Yes.
If I wanted to tell something wonderful that I did, it could be just a minute. I'll be right with you. But if I just said, hey, I just dumped this all over the place, they'd have to react really quickly. So I learned that really young. And so as I got older, I wanted to find a way to not have to be reckless and risk taking. And ultimately, I got into recovery. I got into recovery first with food, and then 5 years later for alcohol. And I've been sober now for 15 and a half years. And, I do believe it's the grace of my higher power, the power of working the 12 steps, but also my willingness to do it. I believe that. And I've just gone from there. I've grown, I've healed, and I think I've helped others.
You've definitely helped me. So thank you for sharing that. Do you believe that 13-year-old little girl that all of the ways that you were sharing you dealt with that moment, would you say it was numbing your emotions or bypassing them or stuffing them down? Like, were you still experiencing the emotions, or were these things helping you to numb yourself from feeling so much?
I think both. I think that's a really good question. I definitely numbing. I think for me, the addiction of the food, the drugs, the alcohol, the relationships, all of that. I think in a lot of ways it numbed what I was feeling, although I was still feeling, I still was feeling big. But I think it protected me as well. I wasn't ready to really understand what I was going through. And so I think in a lot of ways it did it buffered because my mom was the buffer. She buffered me from the real scary things in the world. And now she's gone. And I replaced that buffer with other things just so everything wasn't so scary. But the truth is, it was still scary.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely numbed it. It was too big. It was too much. And I didn't have the language or the tools to deal with it. I could name it, even if somebody told me what it was called. Now what? What are the tools?
Yeah.
And for me, talk therapy wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important, but it wasn't enough for me.
How did getting into recovery help heal you?
I went to my first AA meeting when I was 17. I was in a situation and I was kind of forced there. And I'm listening, and I felt like these were my people. They spoke a language I truly understood. But I'm thinking, well, I wonder if there's something like this for food. And I asked somebody about that, and they said no. Well, there was, but she didn't know about it. And at that point, I had problems with alcohol, and it definitely was an issue. But food, I felt like was a bigger one, and I was not prepared to be a 17-year-old without drinking, with everybody else. And ultimately, I did find the food. I went to my first Overeaters Anonymous meeting. It was 1985. My second one in 1992. And then I finally went and stayed. It was 2001. And when I walked in, these people they told my story. They understood the insanity of what I was doing. I had hoped that if I can just figure out why I'm doing this, then I can do something different. And that wasn't working. The fact is, I just am. It's just addiction. I think I was born with it, and I think I honed it over the years. That's just my story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how it helped me were the steps. I had to learn that I wasn't in control, which was really hard. It's still hard. I mean, come on, we kind of all want to have some control. I had to learn there was a power greater than myself that could help me, that what I was doing was insane. And I had to let that higher power help me. And then I had to take accountability for everything that I've done. I had to really look at who I am, what my part is, my side of the street. I couldn't blame other people anymore. I couldn't blame my mother's death and my father's inability to handle me, or relationships, or even like God. I couldn't blame anybody but me. I had not even blame, but I couldn't point fingers at other people for my pain. I had to become responsible. I had to become responsible for myself in a different way, And it gave me the tools to do it. And it gave me the people to do it. Like people who came before me showed me. And my secrets could come out because nothing I said, other people had already either done it, heard it, been there, and it was safe.
Yeah. Why do you think that you were able to go, dip your toe in the water for this thing that would ultimately help you, but then it took you years to go back before you were really ready to say yes? What was that process like?
Well, it was scary. I had proven time and time again throughout my life that I was incapable of moderation of any kind. I had proven that I couldn't eat healthy. I had proven that I couldn't have one drink. I had proven that I could not be in a healthy relationship. I had proven so many times at what a failure I was. And I would see people in here like getting it. And yeah, they told the story, and some of their stories, sounded like mine, but they they had something more that I didn't. And I didn't want to fail. I didn't think I could do it, but I loved the language. I loved the language. It really spoke to me. And after spending years of my life, I mean, I tried on every religion. I have tried it all on, and none of it fit. There were pieces of it I really liked. In each one, there was something, but overall, it didn't resonate. And walking in here and hearing the freedom to define my higher power, the tools, and then somebody to walk through it with me. I mean, I didn't just was given tools and said, "Here, go ahead." It was like, "Here, let me walk through this with you and show you how it's done." But I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to be that person in recovery. Who would I be? Like, who would I be if I could truly own all my truth? Like, who would I be if I wasn't shoving everything down? I was so scared of recovery and what that would look like for me. As much as I desired it, as much as I craved it, I was more afraid of it until I wasn't.
I'm hearing a lot of, even, I would use the word grief, if that resonates with you, of letting go of who you were, right? That this process on your becoming, you had to let go of so much, all of the ways that you were living in order to take that next step. Does that feel like grief for the old self as well?
Absolutely. I mean, this is my belief. I believe we are conditioned to believe a certain way, based in love, usually by our parents, our grandparents, our teachers, these people, these adults, these authority figures that seem to know more than us. And they tell us what to think, to believe, and how to see things. And a lot of it doesn't align with who we are individually. And so I had to peel all those layers back. And I was really scared. What if what I find wasn't that beautiful little essence I thought it really was, like that I once remembered? And there is a lot of grief of letting go, even though it was like doing more harm than good. My food became my friend. It was my best. It was the one thing I could count on. Alcohol just became a place I could go to. They were reliable, and I have to say goodbye to them. So there is the grief of even them, like, bye guys, no more. I just, there's grief in those relationships. And there was grief in the relationships I made and the lifestyle living.
Yeah.
They're gone too. My way of thinking, I mean, all the things that I had protected myself with, they're gone. So yeah, grief was definitely an overlying part of everything that I did. And sometimes still do.
Yeah. Thank you. I think you speak so beautifully to a very universal challenge that everybody experiences, which is like knowing the things that could help you and being so afraid to go there, right? And the courage that it takes to ultimately be able to accept the help in whatever way or whatever form that is, right? It's like whenever I see somebody coming into a yoga class for the first time, there's a vulnerability there, right? There is a, oh, I'm doing something new. And that takes such courage to be able to go down that path. What would you say your relationship is with your emotions now? So now when you experience big emotions after being in recovery for so long, you no longer can rely on the ways that you coped and moved through the world before. So now what does it look like for you?
It's interesting. When my dad died, he died 10 years ago, and I had the opportunity help him the last 5 months of his life. And I got to spend just some real quality time with him in conversation, which my dad was not a person that shared deeply about anything. And this wasn't different, although I did get a few little nuggets out of him. And it was a beautiful death as far as a death could be. If a death was going to be beautiful, this was it. And, we said there was nothing left unsaid from him or from me. Back when I was a teenager, he had to change the locks of the house. He didn't trust me. And at the end of his life, he trusted me more than anybody in the world. And when he died, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but it was just like the alignment of it. It was beautiful. I felt at peace. And shortly after he died, maybe a couple months, I found out there's other reckless things I can do other than drugs and alcohol and food and all these things that I had taken care of. I found out, I saw myself, there's still other things in this world that can numb the pain. And I did go that path for just a minute, and I became aware, and I made a decision that I need to feel this. I need to feel all of it. And I today am not afraid of my feelings, my emotions, or any of that, because I have to feel them or they will come out sideways. Every single time. I will be shown something a lot harder than what it would be to feel them. And they never, once I allow the feeling to really feel them, and then to feel them, I might feel them in writing. I might express it in writing. I might express it in conversation with people that I trust. I may just do some meditation. It was funny. I was feeling something really hard, and a friend of mine suggested I sit with it. And I was like, no problem. I'll sit with it. Sure, of course. 15 minutes. And 2 minutes in, I got a brilliant idea to write a letter. I always believe in writing letters to and from my emotions. And so I popped up and I'm like, brilliant. I sat down and I started writing, and then it hit me. I didn't sit with it. Like, I sat for 2 minutes and I had a laugh. Even though it's something I'm aware of, I still don't do it perfectly. I just know I have to do it in a messy way then. Like, I have to dancing helps me. Like, I love to dance it out if I'm feeling something. So there's ways, whatever it is, and I need to go to somebody who doesn't want to fix it. That's really important. And I have a group of people in my life. I know who can give me what. And I don't, because our feelings don't need to be fixed. They just need to be felt, and they need to be honored. And what I'm getting better at is naming them correctly so I can express them appropriately. No, I love feelings. I was talking one time and I said something about being sad. It was around the anniversary of my mother's death. I'm thrilled that I can say that today, that I'm sad. Whereas before it's like, let me shove this feeling down because I'm so sad. But I wasn't feeling the sadness. And this person I was talking to said, well, I hope you feel better. And I said, better? There's nothing wrong with feeling sad. What, just happy is the better? It's the more comfortable. Is it better though? I don't know. And I wanted to feel the sadness. I think it's important. Why wouldn't I feel sad? My mother died.
Yeah, that is what we need more of in this world, is being able to, when someone asks, how are you, to say the truth, and for that person just to hold it, right? To not need to make it anything other than that, right? It's like, be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And one thing that I love that you and I have come to do is, there have been times when I have felt such big emotions and I can't reach you on the phone, but I will either text it to you or just leave you a voicemail, and I need no response. Like, I will say, okay, this is what I'm feeling. I'm just going to get it all out, right? And I don't even need a response. And something happens in that, just me sharing it and knowing that you're holding it, even if you aren't actively there on the phone or whatever that looks like. it's become a really sacred part that you are a part of my inner circle, my inner heart, where it's like, I know I can go with my messiest, darkest emotions, and there will be no judgment. And like you just shared, there will be no trying to fix it, because that's not what I need in the moment, right? That's what we need more of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just to check, go a little further with the messy, I think much of what we've learned, much of what I learned, it makes other people uncomfortable. Our big emotions make other people uncomfortable, so we rein them in. Or if we do express them at all, they're kind of tied in a nice, neat bow. And the truth is, it is messy. Like, it's just to truly feel your feelings, it is messy. There is no nice, neat bow. Maybe at the end of the expression of it and the release of it, and you kind of breathe, and it's like, the bow can maybe be tied then, or maybe it's just set free. I think it's so scary to be messy. Many of us have been raised to do it perfect, and as women, to do it pretty, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so beautiful.
Yeah,
I think it is.
Yeah. I love this conversation because it so perfectly ties into the body in different ways. So in the beginning of your emotional journey was so much about eating and the comfort that you felt through that. So now, what is your relationship with your emotions in the body? Like, how do you, I know you mentioned dancing, so definitely dancing is one way that you release it, but when you have big emotions, do you feel them in your body? How does that look for you?
For so much of my life, because I did therapy on and off for years, and for so much of my life, the therapist would say to me, "Where do you feel that in your body?" And I pretty much always said my stomach, because I think I related a lot to my stomach, because listen to your gut, and so I thought my gut was my stomach, and I don't know, but I didn't know where I was feeling it. What does that even mean? Where does I feel it in my body? And today, if I pause, and I do try to pause, but no, I don't try. I do pause for the most part. There are times that I don't. Overall, I do. And I will say, where am I feeling it in my body? And it doesn't even take a minute. Sometimes I'll feel it in my body and say, ooh, what am I feeling? What is my emotion? And then I can do something like my hips. I carry a lot of dark emotion in my hips, the heavier of the emotion, rage, anguish, grief, like real deep stuff goes into my hips. And there's a lot of yoga poses that can help just to stretch out my hips, to move my hips. So to now I can go to the place where is it bothering me? Where do I feel it? And find a space to move it through. It doesn't, I don't know where I was going to go with that.
That's okay.
So,
does it show up as, so feeling you store a lot in your hips, does it feel like pain? Does it manifest in disease or actual chronic pain, or does it show up in any way like that for you?
For me, it's pain. It's uncomfortable. Discomfort is a great motivator for me. I don't like to feel discomfort. So it's a great motivator for me. Yeah, it can be painful. It can be a nudge. And sometimes, like, I get a cold sore at the same place on my lip. And it's always when I'm under a great deal of stress or I'm sick. And I don't get sick often, so it's usually stress. And I don't necessarily know I'm stressed until I see that.
Yes.
Like, I'll feel it and I'll go, what's going on in my life? And it's like, oh my gosh, look at all that's going on. And I can then pay attention to the stress. I wish I could see the stress before that showed up on my face. And sometimes I can, but overall, it's sometimes I'll feel something and I'll say, okay, what's going on that this is showing up? And that's what I
Yeah.
mean when it comes out sideways.
Yep.
You know, it can come out like that, or it can come out in my behavior. You know, I might be short with somebody, or I might, you know, I don't like how I'm showing up. There's something behind that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I love, drawing that connection. So for some people, they recognize the emotion first and then they feel it in their body. And for many people, they see it in their body. And then now, through years of practice, you're able to say, okay, when this pops up, I know if I have a cold sore, it means I'm stressed. For me, it's TMJ. It's me clenching my jaw and grinding my teeth at night. When I wake up in the morning and have pain in my ear and my jaw, I'm like, okay, what am I stressed about? Right? So I know that you love the book Burnout. And in last episode, we went into stress and overwhelm and talked about all the different ways to complete the stress cycle. So what's your favorite way to complete a stress cycle?
I would have to say, if it's the physically is dance.
Yeah.
I love to just, sometimes it's hard because I'm at work, or although I've been known to walk away and move, but dance is a big one. It's talking. Talking actually does, feeling that that connection with someone, a positive connection with someone. Because I know sometimes I'm with people that I'm not connecting with, and it's so easy to so-called connect with negative conversation or complaints. And so to positively connect with somebody, I love at least a 20-second hug. I love a good hug where you hug until you breathe. Like you just exhale. You don't even realize you're holding your breath as you hug. And then all of a sudden it's just release. I love that. I'd say those are my favorites. I probably have more. I'd have to think.
And you, because I know this about you, you walk a lot. So you,
I do walk a lot.
Movement is pretty much a part of your daily life. Is there some form of movement happening? Yeah.
No, yesterday I was feeling I was feeling a lot.
Yeah.
And I ended up going on a very long walk early in the morning. And I was very aware that that's exactly what I was doing. So it's funny, I didn't even come up with that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was doing. I needed to release. And sometimes when I walk, I'll shake my hand. There's a lot in I shake my hand just to give it an extra boost or something. I don't know. It just feels right.
Yeah.
So that's
just like animals. Animals are always shaking to get the stress out of their bodies.
Shake it off. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not so true.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation and just helping us understand the consequences of not dealing with our emotions and how that can look and what a life can look like once we do. I think I have one last question for you before we get to our rapid fire questions, which is, you have taught me that within the discipline, there actually is freedom. And I remember the first time you saying something of that sort to me, and I was like, no, I am not on board with this. I do not get this. I do not understand this. But now that I've had to have a much stricter diet, I don't even want to use the word diet because it's not in that way, but it's in relation to what I eat. I've found that there's actually a freedom because I don't feel sick or I don't get sick in relation to any gut issues. So can you talk a little bit about the freedom that actually can live within the discipline?
Absolutely. You know, a lot of people have mentioned, I'd say they have mentioned this to me. I mean, I eat a very structured food plan, and I have for 15 years now. I weigh and measure my food. I commit my food. I know what I'm eating every day. And it seems very like rigid. But for me, because I have spent so much of my life thinking about food, am I eating too much? Am I eating too little? Obsessing about food, not being present. Now I just, I put my food in the cup and I call it a day and I don't have to give it another thought. When it's time to eat, I eat it and I get to be present in my life. It gives me that freedom to truly see what's in front of me and have conversations and be able to listen and hear the person rather than wonder if they're going to finish what they're eating. I mean, it was my mind could go crazy, and there's just a quiet in that, and just that discipline. I mean, I have other disciplines. I write every day. I talk to other people every single day. I make 3 phone calls to other people doing the work that I do. I really stay connected. I prayer, meditation, just quieting myself down. It gives me the life, you know. I always hid in the noise. I hid really deep in the noise. And my spirit craves quiet. Like I love the quiet. And sometimes I still have to work that through because I can be so disciplined and structured in parts of my life. There are other parts of my life, and I say I kind of want to wear it like a loose garment. I just want to like flow with ease, and I don't want to be structured in every part of my life. And I don't have to be. It's taught me a lot about boundaries, and boundaries don't keep. I always thought they kept us in. They chained us, and no, they allow the real me to be free to be me, and it's there's a whole lot of freedom in the discipline and boundaries and honoring what we need.
I thought I was going to be able to leave it there. I should never say this is the last question. Lesson learned from me. So now I have one more question because you brought it up in there. How has your spirituality changed through the course of your life in relation to your emotions and now knowing what your emotions are? And what I was hearing is that ability to be really present at this point.
I was always seeking. I wasn't raised with any particular, I was raised Jewish, but I was never taught what that meant. So I was always seeking. And my parents gave me the freedom to seek. I could go to church or any place with other people, but over the years, I sought. And it wasn't until I came in, as I mentioned, working the 12 steps, it was encouraged that I define what I want, higher power. And I tend to call that higher power God when I'm in company because it puts shape and understanding. It's just my higher power. It's the universe. It's the divine energy. I've learned in faith and footwork. Like I truly believe in the magic of what is ours and what can be ours. I believe it because I've seen it. And I don't believe in coincidences. We say that all the time. It's a coincidence. No, it's so much more than that. I believe I rely on the miracles and the magic. It's brought people into my life. It's brought healing. I don't think it just lands in your lap, although I've had a few things happen in my life that were not my thoughts. They just came in and I followed them and it took me down a path, but I had to do the work. I don't think we're just given things. I think we're shown things and it's up to us to then follow through. I really try to keep an open mind and an open heart to that because I've missed so much in my life. Just ignoring all those signs, just ignoring them all. So I choose to believe in something magnificent and it makes my life better for it.
Oh, thank you. Now we're ready for some rapid fire questions. So what's your favorite book?
My favorite book. I'd love to say, so I don't know what I'd love to say. So my favorite book, I'm going to name 3. And I don't know if they're my favorites necessarily, but they're books that I reread many times over because they give me what I need. One of them absolutely is The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. I have read that probably, 5 or 6 times. And I am sure there are many more to come. It's just something that it tells me about my upper limit and how to push through it. And it just reminds me, and I need to hear it because I do forget. I do forget. So I do need to remember. Another one is Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Wayne Dyer. That one is a definite reread. I don't know how many times I've read that. I tend to listen more than read, but yeah, that book, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. It's right there in the title. And another one that I go to a lot, and I just actually reread it, like I think I finished it the other day, is Outrageous Openness by Tosha Silver. And it just reminds me of, it's just like, it's all right here. It's all happening. Like the magic is real. The magic is real.
I love all of those books. Those books are all in my top favorite books too. What are you currently reading?
What I'm currently reading, I usually have a couple going. Usually there's some fluffy kind of novel that's kind of fun and relaxing. I don't have that going right now. So what I'm reading right now is, and it's the second time I've read it, it's The Spirituality of Imperfection. And I don't have the name of the author with me. There's two authors, but Spirituality of Imperfection. And I don't know, there's something this time reading it that's just opening me up in a way that the time is now. You know, you asked earlier, why not then? Why later? And, you know, I don't know why, but the time is now. And this book is just brilliant.
I am adding that one to my list. I have not read that one, but it's in my Amazon cart. So
yeah, so good. So good.
And what is one thing you know for sure?
Well, there's a lot of freedom in saying I don't know, which I never knew until I started saying it. You know, I'm just going to say, I had a couple things in my head that I was going to say. One thing I know for sure is I am powerless over my first thought. I am powerless over my first thought. There are things that pop in like uninvited and they just show up. I am not powerless on how I respond. My response to the world is up to me. And I can blame and I can accuse and I can all sorts of things that I truly am as happy as I make myself out to be. And that's Abraham Lincoln. That's not me. Yeah. You know, our perception is so important. How do we respond to the world? That's the one thing I know for sure.
I love that one. Thank you. And our last question, every week we like to end with either a quote or a poem, something for people to ponder on. So do you have a quote or a poem you would like to share?
Well, I have a quote, a reading, and a poem. So I'll try to be quick.
You can do one, all three, whichever. We're here for it.
My quote is, do one thing every day that scares you, Eleanor Roosevelt. I don't always do something every day that scares me. It's something I strive for, just to be really brave. And like today I did this. So there you go. My favorite reading is Elizabeth Gilbert, her fear quote, which I have replaced most often with the word grief, but it's fear. I recognize and respect that you are part of this family, and so I will never exclude you from our activities. But still, your suggestions will never be followed. You're allowed to have a seat and you're allowed to have a voice, but you are not allowed to have a vote. You're not allowed to touch the roadmap. You're not allowed to suggest detours. You're not allowed to fiddle with the temperature. Dude, you're not even allowed to touch the radio. But above all else, my dear old familiar friend, you are absolutely forbidden to try. And that one to me goes along with, you know, our emotions. We're allowed to feel them. What gets us in trouble with our emotions is when we let them own us. We are not our emotions. They're just an expression of what we're feeling. And I know that's what's gotten me in trouble so many times in the years, is I thought they were my identity, and they're not.
Thank you. That is one of my favorite quotes I share with many people, and one I choose to live by as well. And did you have one other thing you wanted to share? Or was that
Well, it's a poem, but it's and it is one of my favorite poems.
Mm-hmm.
But okay.
Share
I'll read
it. Share it.
Real quick. Okay. It's called The Cookie Thief by Valerie Cox.
Ooh.
A woman was waiting at an airport one night with several long hours before her flight. She hunted for a book in the airport shop, bought a bag of cookies, and found a place to drop. She was engrossed in her book, but happened to see that the man beside her, as bold as could be, grabbed a cookie or two from the bag between, which she tried to ignore to avoid a scene. She munched cookies and watched the clock as this gutsy cookie thief diminished her stock. She was getting more irritated as the minutes ticked by, thinking if I wasn't so nice, I'd blacken his eye. With each cookie she took, he took one too. And when only one was left, she wondered what he'd do. With a smile on his face and a nervous laugh, he took the last cookie and broke it in half. He offered her half as he ate the other. She snatched it from him and thought, oh, brother, this guy has some nerve and he's also rude. Why, he didn't even show any gratitude. She had never known when she had been so galled and sighed with relief when her flight was called. She gathered her belongings and headed for the gate, refusing to look back, thieving ingrate. She boarded the plane and sank into her seat, then sought her book, which was almost complete. As she reached into her baggage, she gasped with surprise. There was a bag of cookies in front of her eyes. If mine are here, she moaned with despair, then the others were his, and he tried to share. Too late to apologize, she realized with grief that she was the rude one, the ingrate, the thief. I love that poem. We just never know the whole story. We never know the whole story, you know.
Yeah, I've never heard that poem before. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I love.
It's just one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to be thinking about that one for a while. So, well, thank you.
Yeah, we just never know the whole story.
Mm-hmm. We don't.
Thank you.
And here's to our first interview, and I'm sure we will meet again for another interview. So thank you for being our first guest, guinea pig.
Oh, Meg,
extraordinaire. So all right. Love you.
Thank you so much. Love you.
Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into the episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you're ready to dive deeper into your own emotional expedition, I invite you to join me in an intimate 8-week virtual book study of Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart. And in case you're not quite ready to join the study, I wanted to share a free offering that I often suggest to people as a little bit of a compass to get them started on their emotional journey, the Meditation to Alleviate Stress. You can find the meditation and the book study linked below. I'm so grateful you're here. Thank you for listening. And if you loved this episode, will you please share it with a friend or two? Be sure to rate, review, and follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, so you're sure to never miss a single episode.